Alrighty, everyone. Welcome back to GMAT Club. I'm your host, Selvi, and today we have a truly unique guest, Nishant, who is a medical doctor who scored 715 on the GMAT Focus, and that's the 99.5th percentile. Now, what makes Nishant's story stand out is not just the score, but how he managed to get there. Instead of drowning in theory, Nishant built his prep around one thing, which was his application and deep mock analysis. He spent 6 to 8 months preparing, and at one point even changed the section order completely, and it changed everything. Nishant, it's so great to have you here. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you so much, Selby, for the introduction. I think it was very energetic. So, for the audience, hey, I am Dr. Nishant. I am a medical doctor. I did my graduation from Rajasthan, and after that, I worked for a for a few years in the clinical domain. After that, I shifted gears and started managing hospitals. And currently, I am managing the India's largest out of care hospital partner, healthcare too.
Oh,
So
wow, that's awesome. Now, since you said you're a medical doctor, it's kind of unusual for a GMAT candidate. How did that shape actually your approach going in?
I think it was needed because I worked for a long time in the clinical setup, and I did realize that I need to bring change at the systems level
Hmm.
to fix the gap that is happening inside the basically there's a gap between the people who provide healthcare and people who need healthcare. So for that, someone had to basically know the best of both the worlds,
Oh,
both the sides. So to fill in that gap, I thought I should step up and basically then GMAT was the best option available because it promises a global exposure.
that's
Uh, so, so that's
that's
why I approached GMAT.
awesome. Now, you started GMAT prep back in 2023, is that correct? 2020.
Yes, yes. I gave my first attempt of GMAT. Back then, it was classic GMAT. So in
Mm,
2023, right out of my college. Uh, so yes, correct.
okay. And what was your biggest concern when you started prepping, given that you have not been really exposed to numbers and data for quite a while?
I think this was my biggest concern that because it had been almost 9 years since
Mm.
I had even practiced basic quants. So
Oh,
it was my biggest concern, but ultimately in my final attempt, it turned out to be my biggest strength. So
interesting.
I think it fared well.
And what was your score actually in your first attempt?
So in my first attempt, I scored a 680 in GMAT Classic.
Oh, wow. Okay, so not that bad actually, right? Uh, well, it's kind of not that bad, but I guess coming from your demographic, you must have been aiming for a higher score, right?
Exactly, exactly. Because maybe it was lack of proper guidance or information, but I just went to the websites of various colleges that
Hmm.
were supposedly in my mind, and I
Hmm.
looked at their average scores, and 680 was somewhere below the average score.
Oh, I see. So what score were you actually aiming for
I
at
was
that?
uh, I was somewhere aiming around 740, 740, 750. Basically, 20 to 30 points above the median score of
Oh,
the schools.
so yeah, so you definitely had some scope of improvement right there. And looking at the chart, so I mean, for those of y'all, we're gonna be adding it right here. But in the chart, like if you showed that 2023 you took the classic, and then I think you took one whole year to take the next test. Why the gap?
Exactly. So honestly, the gap was because, and even the 680 score was because I wasn't confident that
Mm.
I actually needed to do an MBA.
Oh.
So prior to that, I had no practical on ground experience of how the administration side of healthcare works. So
I
I
see.
had basically had conversation with people, but practically I wasn't exposed to it. So I took a whole year just to see if the way I'm going is the right
Mhm.
one for me.
And
And
once you decided that, you
even
decided to take the GMAT again.
yes, once I did that, even I was completely sure that now GMAT is the only way to move ahead.
I
So it
see.
served
I
as a
see.
motivator for me.
I see. When you took the classic version back then, what were you lacking in with the 680 score? What was your section uh, uh, scores like?
So I did good at quant at that time. I
Mm-hmm.
scored Q50, but
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't able to score well at verbal. So I did score 31 out of 51 in verbal,
Okay.
and that was mainly because a few silly mistakes. I'll say a few silly mistakes because under pressure I just read the sentences for the sake of reading it and completing them as soon as possible. So
Okay.
missed what was written between the lines. So
Mm,
that
I
was the
see.
mistake I did in verbal.
I see. And it's after you took 1 year gap, right? That's when the Focus edition started.
Addition,
So
yeah.
you went from a classic to now preparing for a completely revised version of the test. How was that change like for you?
So honestly, I think like many other candidates who were preparing during that time, I was completely shocked as well
Mm-hmm.
as scared because the focus version gives you less opportunities to make mistakes
Mm-hmm.
because number of questions are less and it is I think that because it's judged in that manner, the paper is so it gets difficult once you make a mistake early in your sections. So I was quite scared when this transition happened, but what choice do you have?
Oh, that's true. And I'm sure data insights must have been a little difficult for you at that time as well, right? It was
Exactly.
completely new at the time, and you were already stressed about quant to begin with. How did you find data? If somebody's prepping for GMAT right now, how would you describe those few sections to the audience?
So I think if someone is preparing for GMAT right now, basically the most difficulty I faced was around multi-source reasoning and
Mm,
around two-part analysis. So
mm.
they were the most difficult sections. Somehow I was able to even till the final attempt I was able to get control over the two-part analysis part, but multi-source reasoning still remained a difficult section for me.
Oh,
And
really?
but on the counter side, I'll also advise that you can't leave that because in the data insight section, multi-source reasoning is something make or break. So in my final paper, even I got two questions for multi-source reasoning, and I
Oh, wow.
got both of them right, and it just
Oh,
bumped
wow.
my score. It
Oh
bumped
wow.
my
Well,
score.
see, hey, you hated it, but it ended up doing well for you in the actual test. There you go. Awesome. One thing I did want to discuss a bit more was, I guess, your study approach in general. So yours was a little different compared to other students. You put application over theory. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Selby, I think it came from learning when I was preparing for my classic attempt. So
Mm-hmm.
GMAT is a paper that rewards application more over theory. So basically, in my first attempt, what mistake I made was I during complete my medical years, I was trained to just grasp as much theory, as much facts as possible, and then I had to frame big answers. And basically, I was rewarded for that kind of study. And studying
Mm-hmm.
for GMAT was a completely different thing. So my mind wasn't trained. So here, it is more about application and accuracy in application in that particular time frame. So I had in my mind clear that I'll focus for a brief time during the starting of the preparation over the theory, just to brush up my concepts, and then I'll move towards the questions. And why? So almost daily I used to attempt questions over GMAT Club using the forum quiz, and so almost daily I used to attempt questions, and I used to review them. A lot of my time I spent on reviewing the questions. So I reviewed basically the questions that fell into two buckets. The first bucket was those questions that I got wrong outright, and the
Mm-hmm.
second bucket were those questions that I got right, but it took more than 2 minutes for me to basically get that question right. So under the forum quiz section, then I used to read the comments by. There are actually a few great people on GMAT Club who
Mm-hmm.
are very frequently they answer the questions and help the aspirants. So they have developed. Basically, I read their answers and tried to grab that what is the most efficient way of solving this particular question. So reviewing the questions more helped me than just focusing full time on theory.
I see. I see. And which section did you feel like was more difficult for you than the rest while you were approaching this strategy?
So while I was approaching this strategy, basically data insights was the section that was I felt was most difficult for me, and practically it came because my mind was never trained to attempt, read, analyze data. We don't
Hmm.
do that in our medical years. We don't do that during our practice. So clinicians are not exposed to data, and actually if any clinician is listening to this video, it is a huge opportunity if you understand just little bit of data.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, there you go. Hey, if you don't want to even apply for the MBA, I highly suggest you still take the GMAT. It will teach you a lot. There
it,
you
it
go.
does.
So in the end, though, this application strategy actually helped you a lot. And it was kind of like hitting two birds with one stone. You not only were revising your theory, but at the same time, you were managing to solve questions at a faster pace. And quant was easier for you, or was it verbal? Though I know you scored less in verbal in classic, but what about when you were preparing for the rest of the focus
Uh,
attempts?
so basically what happened is I'll still say that verbal was more difficult for me,
Mm-hmm.
and it was maybe in this final attempt also I had this habit of just when I found that this line was going somewhere in my mind, I skipped it.
Mm.
So automatically it became a habit. It was very difficult for me to unlearn that, but I'll still say in terms of difficulty, DI tops, verbal follows, and then quant will be at last.
Understood. Understood. Now, looking at your mock scores, right? There's clearly a fluctuation. Your score keeps going up and then going down all of a sudden. What went wrong there?
Uh, so again, it's a funny story. I'll say that GMAT tests you a lot on your patience,
Mm,
and basically after a while I feel that if you are preparing via proper resources and giving proper effort, you reach a particular level of understanding about how the paper operates. Now
mhm,
basically what happens is this the way you approach the paper, how fresh your mind is, and how well you pick up the questions that are the initial 5 to 10 questions of each section. How well you pick up those questions decide the fate of your final score. So the algorithm operates in that way. I was aware of it, but I tried to change the section orders.
mm.
So that
Every
is,
time?
yeah. So as a being an aspirant, you always suffer from FOMO, the fear of missing out. So you continuously spend a lot of times on these forums where multiple people keep providing their own experiences and own opinion regarding what worked for them, what didn't work for them. So one of the videos, similar kind, I was going through, and then there I found this concept of section order. So
Mm,
in that particular test, I also did try to change my section order. So
I see. And
so
what was
there
your
was
section
a
order
dip.
initially? What was your section order initially when you first started? Like, which section would you start
Uh,
with first?
okay, so earlier I was choosing the section order emotionally. Basically, what was my the section which I thought was my strongest, I did that first, and then
Mm-hmm.
shifted to the weakest section. So
Mm-hmm.
initially, my section order was quant, DI, and verbal.
Okay, Quant, DI, and verbal. And then afterwards, what changed and how did you change it?
The core reason of changing the section order was that I realized that my DI and verbal scores dropped significantly when taken after mentally exhausting section, that was quant.
Oh,
So basically, I realized the cognitive pattern, how
mm,
it was working, and for me, the final section order that I attempted was verbal first, then
okay.
DI, then quant. So this was the final section.
And I think so. Basically, then you started with the two sections that you were not the most confident in. And then once you
Exactly.
put all your energy in those two, then you decided, okay, now that I know quant, it's going to be easy breezy. It's the last section. Let's do. And is this something that you would suggest for other students as well watching this? And is it something that has you have been reading up on as well, or it's different for different students?
Definitely, the order that I'll suggest, it depends on the hit and trial strategy only. So
Mm-hmm.
in all the mock scores that you were just mentioning about, I was trying what is best working for me, and it went on similar lines only. Even before attempting the quant section, I utilized the break that you
Mm-hmm.
get between the section orders. So I think it was enough for me. But just it is something that will come along with while you're attempting your mocks.
I
So
see.
give each section order at least two mocks, and to figure out if this section order method is working for you. But
I see.
just a word of caution here. In the last three official mocks that I attempted, I kept the same section order. I didn't change it.
Oh.
So, so
So that kind of
not
gave you a momentum as well that, okay, now I know that this is a pattern, it's working for me. Let's just stick with it and not change it so that things don't go bad like in the last minute.
exactly,
Nice,
exactly,
nice.
exactly.
And not only, of course, section order is definitely one of the things that definitely helps with your mock scores. But what about the after effect? Once you are done with your mocks, how would you analyze them so that you don't make the same mistakes again?
So I think that analysis in GMAT is the most important part. If someone, if I'll have to put it into percentages, I
Mhm.
think 30% part is knowing the concepts and attempting questions. 70% part is analysis, because in GMAT to get to a particular percentile, it's possible, but to score in this 99 percentile range, you should be so accurate in your application that
Yeah,
there isn't any margin of error left, and
hmm,
that comes when you review what is going wrong. So for me,
yeah,
I think analysis was a huge game changer, a huge
I
game
see.
changer.
I see. And I read that you literally took 2 full days just to analyze each mock score. So you really put your heart and soul into it, into making sure that everything is like in order and you know what to do for the next mock.
Exactly. So, I think to answer, to provide more insight upon this particular part, uh, from Monday to Friday I was working, so I rarely got any time to study. But so one of the thing that is also important while preparing for GMAT is that you need to sit, learn, and even attempt the GMAT when at a time when you feel your brain is most active. And
I
for
see.
me, that was the mornings. So I
Mhm.
used to each day I used to book 3 hours in the morning to just prepare for the GMAT. I used
Mhm.
to study the concepts, quickly brush up the concepts, and then after that attempt 10 to 15 questions around the same concept, and then I used to leave that. So from Monday to Friday I did this, and on Saturdays I used to review together all the incorrect questions that I had got, and
I
built
see.
a error log. It was not a digital error log. I maintained it over a copy.
Mhm.
And then before going to the on Sundays, I used to attempt the mock papers. So before attempting the mock in the morning, this just one thing I did. I didn't read any theory or any concepts. I just went through my error logs and just went through the part that in this particular week I have attempted these questions, and these are the kinds of question I'm getting wrong, and what are the particular reasons because of which I'm getting the questions wrong.
I
So
see.
this brief analysis, brief study I did in the morning, and then I directly sat for the mock on each Sunday.
I see. Okay, so definitely you had discipline, you had clear structure, and I guess that's what also helped you, keep
Mm.
doing the analysis the right way. Awesome. Now, I guess I would love to talk about the section-wise strategy. So let's start with Quant. How did you go through Quant, and how did you manage to reduce a lot of the errors that you must have gotten throughout your mock tests?
Correct. So, in Quant, the strategy that I applied basically was around pattern recognition. So,
Okay.
if you'll go into the depth of GMAT Quant specifically, you'll see that there are a particular kind of questions that are repeating.
I see.
So the core concept behind the questions is same. Maybe the language is different, maybe the values are different, but the concept is same. So if you are able to catch that pattern, so the questions don't fall into many buckets. So that is the
Mhm.
first thing, pattern recognition. Second thing was that noticing the errors, because Quant, I feel across all the sections of GMAT, Quant is the most competitive one. To get a
Mhm.
higher percentile in Quant is very difficult. So reducing the careless errors was the focus, and again by reviewing the error log, I did that.
That's
So
good. That's good.
so that
And what about
that
for verbal?
for verbal, as I had mentioned earlier, that the mistake what I was making was rushing across the sentences, and because of that I got multiple questions wrong in RC section,
Mm-hmm.
reading comprehension. So my strategy for verbal was slowing down. It's very basic, it's common sense, but again, while we are preparing and while we are attempting, we usually tend to forget it. So my strategy was slowing down. Even before attempting the paper, I reminded myself continuously that you have to slow down, and that's why verbal was the first section that I approached in my own final attempt. And then for CR, what worked for me was analyzing the options thoroughly before choosing one. So for CR, it was more around options. I basically ran logic behind each of these.
I see. And
So
what
this
about
was
RC? How difficult was RC for you?
Uh, RC, honestly, because I was maybe my background helped me in RC. I was trained to read a lot and lot of theory,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
so so RC did help me a lot. But again, it has a counter side that I was very interested in science passages, and I
Uh,
didn't like history passages. So So I could see visible difference in my performance when even this passages were from different domains. So,
Mm,
so I think RC I was good at. Maybe I was overconfident. That's why I was rushing through the passages. Uh, but when I improved that, I think it went well.
that's nice. And of course, DI, like you mentioned, it was clearly a hard section for you. And multi-source reasoning still gives you nightmares. But anything else that stood out for you in DI that you kind of want to mention to our
So
audience?
for DI, strongly I'll suggest that you have to look at the clock. So
Mm-hmm.
selective aggression was a strategy, if I can quote it in words. Basically, if you are not able to figure out how to go about with this particular problem within a minute, it's better to skip it,
I
because
see.
DI for me was always the most time consuming section. And in my mocks also, the I even missed questions in the DI section. And in GMAT, if you get a question wrong, it doesn't hurt you much, but if you leave the question, it hurts you very bad in your
Mhm.
final score. So if you are not able to figure out what to do within a minute, leave the question, move ahead.
I see. All right. Well, of course, if anyone's watching this, if you have any more questions regarding, the section-wise strategies, please feel free to put them in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them one by one. But now let's move on to the prep resources. What really helped you get the score that you got today? So, which all prep resources did you start using at the initial time of your prep, and did anything change? Did you find something new while you were preparing for the GMAT?
Definitely. So initially, I used TTP to build
Mm-hmm.
my foundation and understand the core concepts, especially in quant. And then from theory, I moved relatively quickly to GMAT Club. So I think my biggest part of preparation, I spent the time on GMAT Club itself. I used the GMAT Club forum quiz extensively, and basically in that I used to solve the official guide questions,
Mm-hmm.
both the newer ones as well as the older ones. So
Mm-hmm.
I used to solve those. But again, I'll say that between these two resources, what was more important for me was the review process. It was more important, like what is the I after attempting each question, I used to ask myself, like, what is the most efficient way to think about this question.
Mm-hmm.
And over time it helped me identify patterns, shortcuts, and maybe better decision making perspectives.
Yeah, and this is where the application overcomes the theory, right? Which we discussed initially, that you would really review each question you've answered and then take step back and then see, okay, where did I go wrong? And that helped you out tremendously. Any other resources that kind of stood out to you that you would recommend to our GMAT Club audience?
I think if someone has some context around GMAT, then GMAT Club itself is more than enough for preparing and then executing and getting a good score in GMAT, because it has basically an aggregation of all the resources across. But one more thing, I'll just say that you shouldn't jump resources. Like I got a suggestion in between that this particular firm has this better. Some are better in quant, some are better in verbal. But I'll suggest that don't get trapped in resource overload.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't need 10 different resources. Pick one for your concepts, and then spend most of your time in applying those concepts into high quality official questions, and then do a deep review. I think that strategy is more helpful than choosing from where to start and which resource to start.
I see. Okay. Well, we managed to discuss majority of your prep journey, and we did talk a bit briefly about how your study routine was. But anything else in your study routine that you feel like sharing? You did say that you were, studying after your full time job, then you were reviewing a lot of the things during the weekend. But what really helped you through, like, make that clear schedule?
In terms of I think I can guide how working professionals should prepare for their GMAT. Basically, as I just mentioned, that for me the best time for preparation, where my mind was very active to grasp concepts, was during the day, morning time. So in the morning, I used to book my slots between 6 a.m. to 9:30 before going for my job at 10. So between 6 a.m. to 9:30 each morning, I used to book my slots. If I'll go more specific into it, for the initial 1 hour, I used to review the theory, and then
Mm-hmm.
after that, for the 1 hour, I attempted the questions, and then after that, I did the review. So that was my routine during the weekdays. I didn't push myself to study more during the working hours or after work, because after a while I found that it was less productive for me. My brain was not producing efficient results
Mm-hmm.
during that time. So I completely dropped that. Saturdays and Sundays I kept exclusively free for myself during this preparation phase. On Saturdays, I went through my error log. Since
Mm-hmm.
morning, I spent a lot of time on all the questions during the week that I had got wrong. I used to read the question, even try to attempt it again if I'm getting better now. And then I used to go again in the comment section, and then
Mm-hmm.
found the best approach, and then wrote it against the question itself, that
I
this is
see.
the best approach to attempt this kind of question. So on
I
Saturdays, completely I used to do that, and on the Sunday morning, I used to review the highlighted patterns that I got wrong in the previous mock as well as in the week. And then after giving it a brief study, I sat for a mock, and then after that I almost did nothing on Sundays. I kept it
Oh,
just for the and rest time I give it to myself.
no, that's
So I
actually
was.
good, 'cause if that way you don't burn yourself out, which I feel like a
Hmm.
lot of the students sometimes do, and it backfires like anything. But no, you definitely had a clear structure. You tackled, the how to solve the questions the right way. You figured out the section order perfectly. Now let's talk about exam day. So how was your mindset like? How was the routine like? What time did you appear for the test? Let us know.
So Selby, honestly, a lot of people think of it like this way, that it's the exam day, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, I try to keep it as another mock that I am attempting. So
Nice.
basically, 3 mocks prior to the actual exam, I trained myself to perform in similar scenarios around the same time for which I had booked my slot, and I tried to disturb the conditions least. I tried to make them as similar as the actual exam would be. So even the last 3 mocks that I attempted, I went to a cyber cafe and
Nice.
attempted those. I didn't took those mocks at my home itself. So I tried to replicate the exact conditions that will be in the actual exam. So I think it helped me a lot. So basically, on the exam day, I had a similar calm morning, and
Mm-hmm.
this familiar routine I focused upon. And the main thing that stood out for me was the focus on the process, not the score, because from my first attempt and the mocks, I had realized that scores is something that is not in my hand. I can just control the process. So but in the final exam, I felt that DI was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was attempting the last question, I was very unsure that how this particular exam is going like. Uh, but when it ended, I saw a 715. And
How did
so it was more relief than excitement. It was more relief. That first thing was that I am done with the journey. and
Yeah,
now I
of
have to
course.
look at, at the next step. And the strongest emotion, I'll say, it wasn't happiness. It was validation that
Mm,
the process had worked.
of course.
So that is how the final day ended.
No, but congratulations. First of all, it's awesome score. I'm really glad uh, that you got it, after working so hard for it. And of I like to ask this just to tease the students, but would you take the GMAT test again? Just for the heck of
I
it?
I think GMAT humbles you as a
Of
person
course.
because
Yes.
till now I was I and then I don't know if I'm boasting, but I don't want to. But till now I was continuously scoring very well in all the papers that I had attempted,
Oh,
and
nice.
in my first attempt and in my mock. So basically, GMAT humbled me a lot. And
Mm,
in terms of the thinking abilities the paper develops, I think
yeah,
it's a experience. It's a one of a kind of experience. So if given a chance, definitely I'll attempt the GMAT again. And this time because I don't have any risk also, a target to achieve a score. So why not? I'll
that's
attempt.
now, what's the one piece of advice for someone who's stuck in a score plateau right now that you'd like to give?
Honestly, if you are stuck at a score plateau, it is not because you don't know a concept or you have not studied properly. It's just that you have developed a particular way of learning, and the
Hmm.
paper is now demanding that you change your way of learning. So
Hmm.
you'll have to unlearn a few things and learn a few new things. So if you're stuck at that level, I'll suggest you review. And when you'll review, you'll find that you are making a similar kinds of mistake again and again, and by repeating those mistakes you have learned how to make those mistakes. So, first effort would be to unlearn that particular neuronal connection that your mind has formed, and then you just have to basically, whenever you see that particular type of question, before attempting the question, you have to remind yourself the mistake you made while attempting this question previously. So,
Nice.
that is the only way to break the plateau, I feel.
I see. And if someone who's like a non-traditional candidate, let's say they're from medicine, law, or arts, and is intimidated by the GMAT, what would you tell them?
Uh, so honestly, first thing that I'll tell them is if I am able to do it, definitely you will also be able to do it. And second thing is, if you are from a non-traditional background and you're trying to enter into the business world,
Mhm.
I feel there are multiple lucrative opportunities that you will not be able to find in the regular course, which we usually pursue. And third thing that I'll say, that if your goal is clear, like why you want to attempt the GMAT, why you want to do the MBA, I think that clarity is more important. I myself spent a complete year to gain just that clarity. And if you're clear about what you want to do with yourself, GMAT is just a small paper. You'll crack it.
Of course. Well, I guess that's a beautiful way to end it. And again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat below. We'd love to answer them one by one. Dr. Nishant, whenever you're available, I guess you can read through the comments and maybe answer a few of their queries. But thank you so much for doing this debrief. Congratulations on your score once again. And yeah, thanks for everyone who has joined and watched this. Bye bye.
Thank you, Selby. It was my pleasure to join. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who has joined.